This is The Law Show on CL 650. Now back to the show.
Melikilikimaka is a thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day.
Well, I recognize Bing, of course, but it's the Hawaiian Merry Christmas song. But I just got back from Hawaii. I couldn't begin to say that in 10 years. It's Merry Christmas anyway in Hawaiian. It's The Law Show on CIL 650. Joe Murphy, QC, and Bill Dick from MurphyBattista in Vancouver and Kelowna with us in studio. We've been talking about party season and the responsibilities and legal liabilities that happen to people who, carry on a little bit during the season. And not to be buzzkills, precisely the opposite intention here, friends. And our guests are personal injury lawyers. The reason they're generous with their time this morning in terms of talking about you and me and our responsibilities to our friends and employees or co-workers at this time of year is because for a living, these guys deal with the after effects of stupid decisions. People who go to parties, get drunk, kill people, maim people, cause great harm. So Joe, you've been at this an awfully long time, and you've seen far too much carnage on the streets and the highways of our city and our province not to want to do a show like this.
Well, exactly, Sterling. A moment of madness can create a lifetime of suffering. And we see it with our clients, the brain injuries, the spinal cord injuries, and a variety of serious injuries. And the reality is, if we can avoid these things happening, that's good for everybody.
Sure.
It's good for a party host that everybody has a good time and all they end up with is a hangover. Mm-hmm. For the people driving, that they don't have some drunk who's come from a party, run into them and destroy their family, destroy their life. So you can have a good time and you can do it without having big risks to everybody.
Right. And in terms of party goers, Bill, I wanted to ask you this because you were talking about the hosts.
Why are you asking me?
No. And that Supreme Court of Canada decision that says hosts of parties don't have a
duty of care.
Duty of care, but they left open some argument room that you and Joe would love to have a crack at some future point. But in terms of party goers, if you're a person at a party and you see this, and the host is just doing a good job of keeping the mood light and everybody fed and the glasses full. That's what the host's job is. And you're right. The host isn't supposed to monitor behavior and consumption. But if you're a person at the party and you notice somebody just getting absolutely sideways stinko, and you know that person is going to jump in the car and hit the road sometime before this evening is out, do you have a duty or a responsibility to first of all try to intercept that person and get their keys? Good luck with that. Or what other responsibilities, if any, in law, Bill, do you have?
It's a very good question. We were talking about that case where there was a test case in British Columbia, and the court said it's still open to potentially sue the host. In that same factual scenario, there was a friend who was with a drunk driver, and they also sued that friend and said, you had a responsibility to protect me from driving. And the court said, no, there is no duty of care for you to be your brother's keeper in that scenario. I think there's a moral obligation. I think there's an obligation of all of us morally to prevent people who are friends and people that you care about not to get behind the wheel and drink and drive.
Right.
But there's no legal obligation to be your brother's keeper. There's no duty in law in Canada for, if Joe and I are out together, for me to prevent him from getting behind the wheel when he's drunk. He can't sue me. You should have stopped me. You should have stopped me.
Right. You should have taken my keys.
I think the only exception to that is if the person, this citizen, did something to actively contribute towards the risk. So if I take Bill out to the bar. And I buy all the drinks and I encourage him, no, you got to try this and have this and let's get shooters. And if we get in the car and he's driving, I think on those facts, I have some responsibility because I've contributed to the danger.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, there has been no case like that.
Oh, I see. Okay,
so Joe is such a creative thinker. I think in those circumstances, the law would certainly be receptive to finding that duty of care.
Interesting.
But it's rare. It'll be rare and exceptional, I think.
And how would the case be handled, Joe, if that scenario that you just talked about? Who would sue who, or who would be charged with what?
Well, let's say that these two fellows, after having way too many drinks, drive along and someone gets injured by an accident.
Right.
Not either of the two fellows. The injured party would sue the driver, would sue the friend who has created the situation by contributing or creating the problem.
Right.
And maybe sue the bar, because the bar has a careful tab. They know exactly how much people have had to drink.
That's true.
And the waitresses know how much, because they know where the tables are that they're making the money on.
Right. Right. So the liability gets spread around in a situation like that, then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And usually, because the problem with drinking and driving is there are usually catastrophic consequences.
Yes.
And there's not enough insurance, and there's not enough pockets for people to find compensation to help these people. So it gets spread out, but you got to find those pockets.
Okay. So, again, one very easily done little bit of advice from this program for both business people, Joe, and for private homeowners or renters is check the liability policy on your homeowners or tenants insurance or your business insurance.
Yes.
Because that may end up providing a little relief in a tense moment.
Well, Sterling, firstly, we'd like to avoid bad things happening, but
Sure.
if they do, we want to make sure there's lots of insurance to cover us.
Right.
So I would rather spend an extra $200 to buy $5 million worth of coverage on my homeowner policy than be faced with losing my house because I don't have enough insurance.
Exactly.
Because people are going to come to my house, they're going to drink. You have parties, that's the reality, that's our life. So it's just so easy to buy the maximum amount of insurance, and it's so inexpensive.
Right. A very important little detail, the liability insurance clause in your tenants or homeowners packages. Well, Joe Murphy and Bill Dick, Merry Christmas, gentlemen.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
To both of you
Sterling.
and all the gang at MurphyBattista, many of whom have made it to the airwaves here of CIL 650. We really enjoy having our moments with you on The Law Show. Have a terrific holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back next time, right here on The Law Show.